Good morning, everybody. I think I have it all set up. There was a slight issue with my computer this morning, and I know we're running a little bit late. I'm sorry about that, but I think we are up and running. Zara Mallory, she is on Facebook, and she's saying good morning to the Villa families. James Moore is on YouTube saying good morning, and we might have a few more people. I don't know if I messed some people up by being on a little bit later. I do apologize again for that, but yeah, it's Monday, and that's sometimes what happens on Mondays, right? Is that everything gets messed up, and but we're glad. So people are starting to come in good. I'm glad to hear Kathy is here and Dad's watching with her. Good to hear that. Renee, glad to have you this morning also with us on Facebook. So again, just it's a Monday, right? And it's kind of gloomy out. It's the leaves are changing, which is nice, but it's a little bit of gloominess out. Yesterday wasn't bad, I don't think. Church was great. It was fantastic. Pastor RT started our new series on Elisha. I told you guys we get a little sneak peek of what some of the things that were being shared. So, yeah, I'm glad to have him start that. Looking forward to that next few weeks in that series. And then I'm going to try to stay away from talking about Elisha, so I'm not giving up any of the rest of his sermon series, and we don't want to take too much away from him. So, but no, yesterday was great. It was just a good time. So I don't have any major announcements this week. We're gonna get some things on the social media just to continue promoting some of the things that are coming up. The biggest thing is that this weekend we are having our event here. It's not really what we used to do or what we've been doing in the last few years, but we are going to set up a canopy and be able to hand out candy to kids during the trick or treating time, and we'll be able to give them some candy, give them the message, the gospel in a way, hopefully to reach them. But we don't really need any volunteers. I know that's different than usually in the past. We've had a lot of people show up and a lot of people help dress up and pass that candy out, and that's not what we're doing this year. So we're just gonna have like kind of a drive-through or walk-through situation for them to be able to come up and get candy. But what we can still use is candy and donations. So we are trying to hand out as much candy as possible, be able to make that still as fun as possible. I mean, obviously this year no one really knows what that's all going to look like, so we're gonna try something. So anyway, that's what we're going to do on Saturday. So if you can and you want to donate some candy or money to buy candy, you can do that. You can contact Julie Ward if you have any questions about that tract and treating TNT night that we're doing on Saturday. So there's again no other like crazy announcements off of what's going on. Wednesdays we're going to continue promoting what we've been doing on Wednesdays. Classes are picking back up. There's things for kids. There's things for adults. There's things for youth. There's things for everybody in that time frame again. So that's a good thing and a blessing to be able to start doing that again. And then Sundays right now are at 11. So those are our main things this week. And yeah, if anything pops up, obviously I'll let you know. Devotion this morning from 2 Samuel. 2 Samuel, the last chapter, chapter 24. And, it's an interesting, and I'm actually going to read some of what Tozer said in the devotional that I was reading, but I'm gonna try not to throw in too many comments because I have a lot on this specific thing, but I don't want to stray. And same thing Tozer said. I think it's just something we try to be careful with. So anyway, 2 Samuel 24, starting in verse 24, and I'll kind of give you just some background, is that David was told to go up to an area and give an offering to God, and he gets there and he needs to buy something, and it's like a threshing floor. It's a place that he's going to build this altar, and the guy wants to give it to him because he knows it's the king, and he knows who he is and everything else. And he's like, hey, I just want to give this to you. And this is David's response to when this guy wants to give it to him. And he says in verse 24, but the king said to Araunah, no, but I will buy it from you for a price. I will not offer burnt offerings to the Lord my God that cost me nothing. So David bought the threshing floor and the oxen for 50 shekels of silver. And David built there an altar to the Lord and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings. So the Lord responded to the plea for the land, and the plague was averted from Israel. Listen to what David said. I will not offer burnt offerings to the Lord my God that cost me nothing. I think, and again, I'm going to read Tozer, and we're just going to kind of leave it with him because there's a lot to be said here, but I feel that a lot of Christians and a lot of people, and I have to be very careful myself to not fall into this, and I think every one of us do, is that it is easy to fall into worshiping a God when it costs nothing, or worshiping God in a way that cost us nothing. And I'm reminded very much from the very beginning of Scripture where you have Cain and Abel, where there was a price to pay for an offering, the sacrifice that God set out. God explained it to Adam and Eve. Cain and Abel could have already been there. We don't know. But there was instructions. There was already a plan laid out of what a sacrifice should look like, and it does cost. It's sacrifice. It's called a sacrifice for a reason. And so when we turn our worship to God into something that costs us nothing, I don't really know at that point if we're actually sacrificing anything to him. I don't know that we're actually truly worshiping him, because we should be constantly giving him everything we can, and sometimes the things that we don't think we can. Jesus worshiped God, and I know that's a weird thing because of the Trinity and the way that works, but Jesus worshiped God when he sacrificed himself. When he's in the garden and he's saying, I don't want to do this. This is going to hurt. This is going to be hard. This is going to cost me a lot. And God said, I know, but I need you to do it. And Jesus said, okay, I will. Paul and all of the others, David here as an example, all of the people saying, this is hard. How do we do this? Moses, Abraham, putting his son on an altar. And God's saying, I need you to sacrifice for me. I need you to truly worship me, to truly love me, is to sacrifice. That's the way you do it. And David realized that. He could have had the land for free. He could have had the area for free. It could have cost him nothing but a trip to make this sacrifice. And he said, no. That's not the way it's going to work. This needs to cost me. This needs to hurt. This needs to be hard. And again, we don't want to go to extremes as in like doing penance and all of those things, because that's not needed. There's a grace. We're not under law anymore. We're under a new covenant, and I understand that. But when we worship God in a way that doesn't cost us anything, and when it comes to cost, we back off, that's not truly love. And we see it in relationships all the time, right? When it gets to a point where it takes work and effort, then they back out. Well, then there wasn't really love there. True love works through those. True love fights through those. True love does those types of things. And we see the same thing with God. I want to read what Tozer says here. What passes for Christianity in our day, and Tozer's a little bit older than us, but what passes for Christianity in our day is cheap religion. To listen to the current concepts of Christianity, we would conclude it is little more than bits of beautiful poetry, a man-made bouquet of fragrant flowers, a kindly smile for our neighbor, and a couple of good deeds on behalf of a brother or sister. When I consider some of the elements now offered in Christianity as acceptable religion, I have to restrain myself lest I speak too disapprovingly. I fear my words would be so strong that I would have to repent of them. And I read in the scriptures that there are some things God does not want us to say, even about the devil. What do we find surfacing in much of our Christian fellowship? The complaint that God takes too long to work out his will. We don't want to take the time to plow and cultivate. We want the fruit and the harvest right away. We do not want to be engaged in any spiritual battle that takes us into the long night. We want the morning light right now. We do not want the cross. We are more interested in the crown. And so I just want to take that as a challenge, obviously, is to, man, let's make sure that we are not so focused on the crown that we forget the cross. Let's not make us so worried and so focused on the blessings that we forget the effort it takes to get there sometimes. Jesus talked about the parable, right? The sower goes out every day and sows and sows and sows and sows. And then I think Paul kind of adds on to that. It's somebody sows and then somebody else comes back in water and somebody else does this. And God is the one that's making anything grow that's growing in the first place. But who cares who sowed? Who cares who watered? Who cares who did this? That's work. That's effort. That's energy. You know, Paul sacrificed his life. I mean, all of the apostles gave their lives, gave everything to honoring and worshiping God, and sometimes probably never saw some of the fruits. They never got the answer, but they didn't care if they got the answer. They knew they were doing what they were supposed to be doing. They were loving in the way they were supposed to love. They were serving in the way they were supposed to serve. It doesn't matter what ends up happening. If you get thanked, if you get told good job, if you get, rewards, if you see the results, you do what you are supposed to do. It doesn't matter if it's painful. We should be doing what we are supposed to do regardless of anything else. And I think sometimes we have to be careful because I think that it is very easy to have a cheap religion. And I have to, again, this is something that I challenge myself with on a daily basis. I mean, it's easy to come in here and get discouraged with how much work there is or what's going on, or feels like you're constantly doing the same thing over and over again with some people. But that's what we do. That's what God says to do. That's what God gives us to do in our relationships, in our jobs, and in our lives. We live in a way, and sometimes, again, in a sacrificial way. Giving up of something, maybe something that hurts, maybe something that's hard, to show God love, to show God worship. And yes, I think, like Tozer, I think there's a lot of Christians that are completely okay with coming in on a Sunday and singing a song or posting something on social media or doing something, but their life doesn't match up. They're not living in the way that they're singing or they're posting or they're hanging up in their house. And I would say let's change that. Let's do that differently. Let's start living that way. Let's not just sing about it. Let's not just talk about it. Let's not just read about it, make beautiful art about it, but let's actually do it. And I think when we do, I think God does bless us. I think God does things for us. And obviously, I think God can do anything that He's asked you to do. And so I would say just trust Him. He hasn't let you down yet. So I love you guys. I know Judy Marsh, I want to make sure I put up there, she ended up joining us a little bit later. She was there for the most part. I had already started. So I absolutely love you. I will see you tomorrow at 10. I will try to be on right at 10 tomorrow, and we'll have some fun then too. So love you guys. Talk to you later. Bye.